how you listen is how you live. So if you can listen as a practice to subtlety and nuance and overtones and harmonics and everything in between, then you can have a greater appreciation for the full varied spectrum of life.
Before we jump into this episode, I'd love to invite you to join this candid spiritual community to hear more conversations that will help you become happier, healthier, and more healed. All I want you to do is click on that subscribe button because I love your support. I love seeing all the comments pouring through, all the love pouring through, and we're just getting started. I can't wait to go on this journey with you, whether you're a spiritual seeker or you're just curious about the topic. And we really hope that our conversations will provide you food for thought and inspiration for your own spiritual journey. So join us for honest, candid discussions about spirituality for soul's sake. Hello and welcome to another episode of For Soul's Sake, a conversation in which I bring you the best, the most honest, the most successful in the world of wellness, in the world of sound healing today. And I'm honored and deeply grateful to be joined by Sara Auster, who is incredible sound healer, someone that is world-renowned, who's partnered with the likes of Oprah Magazine. She's an author. She's worked with Nike in Amsterdam, Sonos in London. So she's all about sound, all about the soundscape. And I want to get into conversation with her. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Great honor and privilege to be with you. I want to get stuck in sound healing. Where did it begin?
Oh, the dawn of time.
Okay.
But for me, for me, it began at a very young age. So I've always had a strong interest and connection to sound and music and the arts in general. Mm-hmm. And with a real kind of nexus point, I think, started around when I was 7. It was my memory. And my sister, my oldest sister, became ill. And through this illness, she became non-communicative.
Wow.
So going from, singing into hairbrushes in front of the mirror to our favorite songs to not being able to speak to her, my family started to bring in her favorite tapes at that time, a Walkman with headphones, and just to see kind of like a glimmer of reaction in her eyes. So it was not only sound was not only a way that we communicated with my sister, but also a way that we connected as a family, long car rides to the hospital when she was ill and all that. And that was really the starting point of my connection with sound, but sound and music have always offered.
Wow. Is she still struggling with communication? Is it something she has to live with? Is it something that sound healing has, or through the power of sound, she's been able to go back to how she was? Or tell me more.
No, so when she was 16, I was 10, she died.
Sorry to hear, my condolences.
Thank you. But I became fascinated with the body and how it works and when and why it fails us. And I started to explore that through my art and music as a teenager, and then on to getting a degree in fine arts as a mixed media installation artist. Mm-hmm. So through my artwork, I was exploring the body anatomy, also with sound, creating immersive installation experiences. And then when I was 23, working as an artist in New York City, 42nd Street, not too far from where we are right now, I was working in my studio late one night, and I started to hear a loud sound very late at night, which turned into be the floor breaking underneath me.
Okay.
And so I fell 15 feet from the second floor into the first floor with all of my work, extremely poetic in hindsight. But I broke my back in 4 places.
Wow.
Several other injuries with that too. But that introduced me to a whole other world of complementary practices, And I started to explore many different ways to get out of physical pain, which led me to unpack the emotional pain and trauma of a sudden accident like that. It totally changed my life. And that was the beginning of the practitioner in me at 23, to kind of make the connection between the healing aspects of art and music and how I could use them for my own healing.
Why does someone who doesn't have physical pain turn to a method like sound? Do you find that people come because of pain? Is that the main reason, or is that what other reasons would someone be interested in coming to a practice like sound healing?
I think stress could be a factor, which I know a lot of people experience.
Hands up if you experience stress.
At one point or another. And many people who have tried more traditional types of modalities of meditation, who have frustration, sound can be a really accessible entry point for them. But I do find that often it is a pain point or a discomfort, whether physical pain or emotional pain, that brings people to want to explore deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because the practice that I attribute myself most to is it's also sound healing. It's chanting of mantras and chanting of sacred sound vibrations, and people do come because they're looking for an escape route from internal pain, external pain, etc. And very rarely do we come across someone who's genuinely inquisitive or looking for a higher connection. And forgive my ignorance, and you treat me like a baby when it comes to sound healing. Like I know very little about. I know about bowls, and I've seen it being performed, and I know a lot of my friends share. But this is the first conversation I'm having with a sound healer, which I feel is an opportunity for people who have never experienced it before to get a gateway as well. So please forgive my ignorance. But I wanted to know about whether there's any spiritual connotations when it comes to. You're smiling already. It's going to get interesting. Tell me more.
Yes. See, when I look at it, I see, from what I know of your work, that what we do is quite similar. And the roots of the lineage of where my work comes from is from the Veda, from that inner knowing, that knowledge, and also the idea that everything is vibration and sound is happening all around us all the time, internally, externally. And when we can tap into that and feel a connection to that, then this is when we start to feel calm, clarity, and connection.
Wow, that was concise but to the point.
I could go on.
Yeah.
But
tell me more. I mean, have you experienced a connection with divinity or God, or what that name is for you? Maybe you can share. Have you experienced that through performing, through sharing, through also receiving sound healing?
So it's interesting. Very often I am asked as a facilitator of sound bath experiences, like, how much is it a performance?
Right.
Is it very rehearsed? Do you know every note you'll be playing and then you kind of perform it like a piece of music? Or is it improvised? This is the question. So the answer is yes, both. I do consider myself to be a musician, and so I understand what my instruments are capable of, but then it's about being able to let your plan go and be in the moment, be in conversation with the people in front of me and with the environment. And when this is happening, when that is truly happening, when I'm kind of like letting go of the plan or the agenda and just being present with what is, that is when I feel that connection to something greater, something higher, when I feel like I'm the truest expression of myself.
And when it comes to like this intuition that you're alluding to, when you're sharing and you're performing, or when you're serving in one sense, I have a similar concept where I come into any given sharing with a format of what I'd like to share. But then beyond that, I try to keep it intuitive with just trying to read the room and seeing what can I adapt to try and unlock perhaps a more emotional response or a more connected response with God, with divinity, with the absolute truth, whatever name that you'd like to go with there. When it comes to that intuition, is there a way of honing that? Like, people ask me that all the time. Like, how do you know what to say or what to sing at a particular moment? Do you have any thoughts about intuition, how to hone that and how to sharpen that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
The more you practice, the easier it comes. Practice makes practitioner. And about this kind of like performance versus facilitation, I think at some point we decided to put music up on a stage to be performed by a certain select few who are skilled enough to do it. And then everybody else should sit in the audience and watch and be a spectator and not participate. And so I think people are longing to get back to that, hence, more and more interest in kirtan, more and more interest in sound baths, more and more interest in communal experiences of sound where the guest or the participant, well, they're participating.
Yeah.
And not a spectator sport.
Wow.
Yeah.
And when it comes to we spoke about it just before we press record, about this concept of trying to find authentic sound healers or even authentic practices of spirituality. Like, I've got my thoughts on it and how to find someone who's authentic, etc. But when someone's looking, like, you just Google it, for example, you just type in sound healing near me and a plethora of things will pop up. But how do you choose where to go? Is it just anything will go, or is there a way of authentically finding someone?
There is a way of authentically finding someone, I believe. And I think what has become a little bit problematic about sound healing is that it can be quite visual, but it's like the clothes don't make the man type saying. It's the bowls don't make the practitioner. That because it's visual, because you think, oh, this person has these instruments, that must mean that they're qualified to hold a safe and meaningful space for me.
He's got an expensive bowl, everybody.
On a physiological, psychological, and spiritual level, the answer is no. They might have pretty things, but what do you know about them as a person, or what their practice is, who they've studied with, how many years have they been doing it? And you're allowed, as a curious person, to ask questions about that and do a little bit of research, and then also be curious to try different experiences with different practitioners, because not everyone's the same. And I even tell people who have meaningful, transformative experiences with me, if you come back next week, same time, same place, the experience will be different. There's so many variables to how we experience sound that I would invite people to keep showing up with a curiosity around it, because every time can be such a unique experience.
What would be your go-to books or research places to find, the lineage or the tradition of sound healing? Where would someone start if they wanted to know more?
Well, the book that I wrote, which is called Sound Bath, Meditate, Heal, and Connect Through Listening, it shares my personal story of my practice and how I was influenced by all these different lineages. And it points in the direction of these lineages and gives a little bit of a history of sound healing, where it came from and why it's becoming so popular right now.
Why is it? We were talking about that. I don't know, why is it?
And also, right, put a pin in that. And then also at the end of each chapter, there's a step-by-step practice for the reader to do on their own to start to explore sounds in that way. And the reason why I created it was exactly for this reason, was especially maybe it was 5 years ago the book came out. I felt that there wasn't an all-encompassing kind of comprehensive guide, that it can be pretty esoteric.
Yeah.
This stuff, when you start talking about vibration and frequency and all of that, and especially a lot of these more scientific reading can be quite dry. So there's a little bit of everything in my book, a little introduction about, more of like the hard facts and the science, a little bit more information about how sound healing comes from many different cultures and how it's been with us for thousands of years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so it is kind of like an overview to me, as well as my personal journey.
I'm going to check it out. Get me a copy. Get me on Amazon now. What's it called again?
Yeah, or listen to it. I'm reading it also as the audiobook.
Oh, nice.
And there's sound in the audiobook. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah. What's it called again?
Sound Bath.
The book's called Sound Bath.
It's called Sound Bath.
Sound Bath.
Meditate, heal, and connect through listening.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
When we spoke about the popularity and the rise of sound healing, why do you think people are turning to alternative methods of healing rather than homeopathy and, healing through, I don't know, just going on a jog or, what's the appeal and why is it becoming so popular? Because like 5 years ago, or maybe not 5 years ago, my dad used to tell me this, that when he was younger, when people go out for a run, he used to get the comment, "What are you running from?" Like, well, what are you running? You don't need to run.
For my health.
Then exactly. And then yoga came about, and I was like, what's the need of that? Just go for a jog. Like, why do you need to go to the yoga? And now we're going into inner parts of healing in one sense. Like these are parts of healing that maybe are in one sense new age, but like you mentioned, it comes from a steep of tradition. Why do you think people are turning away from healing as they used to know it? Just popping a pill or...
I have so many things to say about that. I'm trying to decide where to begin. Where do I begin? One is a longing to connect to community through spirituality. I believe that a lot of people of this certain generation have kind of like renounced their maybe organized religion that was attempted to be passed down from their parents, maybe saying, I'm going to connect to something higher in my own way, but then not really having the structure that more organized religion provides, and people longing for that connection to themselves, to other people, but not having the formula or the structure to access it. But then also add technology and cell phones, which are just putting up walls and walls and walls to deeper, meaningful connection. And then people are and then the pandemic. So the more kind of blocks that are coming in, the more people, maybe they don't know what it is, but I see it as this longing for connection. So to me, a sound bath is providing a very accessible entry point, that there's no barrier for entry. You can come and be comfortable, lie down. You don't have to sit in a posture or, have any kind of knowledge of anything prior. You can just come and listen, connect to your body, connect to your breath, and let yourself be taken or held by the sound. Yeah.
What would you say is like the goal of sound healing? Because you're kind of alluding to it, like connecting to body, connecting to soul. What's like, how you would say in Buddhism, enlightenment? What does that look like for you?
See, the way that I think about it is how you listen is how you live. So if you can listen as a practice to subtlety and nuance and overtones and harmonics, and everything in between, then you can have a greater appreciation for the full varied spectrum of life. I mean, it's how I think about it. And so when people come in to a sound bath and I'm guiding them to an awareness of their listening and how to listen to the sounds, it's a practice that they can take not only into a conversation, but also into, how they're listening to the world around them, how they're listening to their internal monologue. And you start to kind of have this more open lens around how you're seeing things.
That is so interesting because I think what we're an age where we're living right now is where consciousness or awareness seems to be on everyone's lips. Everyone's talking about it in some way, shape, or form. We need to be more aware about this issue, this political issue, or more aware about this injustice, more conscious about this, more aware about that. There's this wave of consciousness or a rise in consciousness and an awakening of consciousness that's happening. And it's in one sense because we've got some sort of foundation in material life where you feel like, okay, well, we've kind of dealt with all the things that are necessary. Like we know how to get water from the tap now, the electricity runs, etc. And so let's talk about something of higher consciousness. And it's really quite exciting for me. It's something that as a young kid, I felt was really necessary, that people start talking about greater awareness, greater consciousness of the self. Who am I really when that which is not me is taken away? Who am I really when all the things that are not me are stripped away? Who is that I? And then going even further, is there a greater connection with something supernatural? Like, is there something? How can we access that consciousness? How can we access that awareness? And so when you said like that sound healing, it comes without barriers, I can totally envisage that. I can understand that people are coming from any walk of life and not feeling that they're indoctrinated or put into a sect or put into a cult or anything of the sort. But it's just, you're here to awaken your own consciousness. You're here to heal perhaps some trauma or to heal anything that's inside that's blocking you from recognizing who is the true I and who is the true self. And I guess one of the things that's on my mind is that, okay, say you're a person that loves sound healing. It's still considered quite, in one sense, new agey. And people of my parents' generation, perhaps, I'm fully stereotyping this and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I can imagine them going, you guys are off your rocker, like, why are you guys chanting all these mantras and sitting before sound bowls? And like, what's wrong with just like going for a jog, you know? Like, and how would you deal with people who love spiritual practices but don't know how to per se take their family on that same journey? Because I found that taking your family on that journey is the hardest thing.
Yeah.
Because they've seen you in your diapers and stuff, you know, they've seen you in nappies. Right. And how do you bring them along? Like, how is it even necessary?
Right. I often say, you know, I'm not in the business of convincing anyone of anything. And what I prefer to do, and I get invited to speak for corporate events or conferences and things like that, I always request that I'm able to facilitate an experience, to not just speak about the scientific benefits of sound healing, because there's only so much intellectualizing we can do around why this works. You know, how does this frequency affect our neurology, you know, and all of that. But you have to be in the experience.
Got to taste the cake.
Of it. Right. Exactly. And so what I find is just kind of not this, you know, you're doing this kind of pulling the rope kind of action. You know, not that at all, but just continuing to do it for the love of it. And then that becomes kind of infectious, and that opens up people's curiosity. You know, and now my parents, for instance, love sound baths. My mother can't go to sleep at night. Every night she listens to the same recording to put her to sleep. So, and her love of it became infectious, you know, to all of her friends and all of that. But again, like you said, when you were younger, you were always kind of like seeking this connection. That was for me too. And I looked in a lot of different directions. And now I feel there's this kind of like softening and kind of sitting back and letting people be attracted to it instead of trying to draw them in. Yeah.
It's hard though, isn't it? Because like, say you love someone and you found something that's incredible. You want to take them on that. Like for example, with my dad, he's an incredible person. I love him to bits. But when he first came across this practice that I'm in right now, he thought I was completely nuts. He thought I was brainwashed. He thought like, I'm going to, try and convert everybody to what I'm doing. And so, it was painful as well, because I loved it. I still love it. And he's now very much a practitioner and a lover of it. But I guess it's hard when you want others to experience what you're experiencing. If you're experiencing healing, you want others to also experience that too. And I guess in one sense, maybe it's the narrative the way in which we speak to people, which is like, I'm not trying to convert you. I just want you to experience this. Like, even if you don't like it.
And I think for me, it's less about even mentioning that at all and more about meeting people where they are.
Right.
And I think that's why I have been so fortunate enough to work with all of these different brands and organizations, is because, I look at the World Health Organization and I say, well, what's their motive? What's their agenda? How can I speak to them and their interests while sharing my work? Or I look at Nike and I say, what are their interests? Who are they trying to speak to? How can I adapt, my work to speak to them? And so, because I do feel that sound is so complementary and the work that I do can be for anyone at any level, then it's more about starting with listening and saying, okay, what is this person's level of comfort? And now where can I begin with them? Versus being able to dive right in and speak about spirituality or connection to God or things like that with somebody when I know, ooh, that's icky stuff. That's going to make them, okay, let's just talk about relaxation. Do you want to feel relaxed? Do you want to feel less stress? And those things that are really universal human experiences. And that's kind of what I think, invites people into curiosity.
Wow. The future of sound healing. Would you, in an ideal world, is there a utopic view of what it would look like? Do you know where it's going? I know. Big question.
Yeah, it's a wild west right now. I don't know. I just stay focused on the integrity of what I'm doing. Yeah. I think that's the key. I mean, I do facilitate trainings and mentorships and things like that, and do the best work that I can to help expand the offering and keep the education around it. But I see the expansion as mostly positive. I think the fact that you can, throw a stone and find a sound bath now is incredible. And 10 years ago with my work, if I told people what I did, they would look at me sideways.
Yeah. What's that now?
And now the response is, oh, I love sound baths. I mean, some people. Wow. So, it's definitely come a long way pretty quickly. And like with anything, there'll be a lot of interpretations and a lot of commercialization around it, which, is
that comes with expansion.
Right. Right. But I'm happy to see it kind of infiltrate or spread to a lot of different audiences. That's really exciting to me.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for being a proponent of it and being such a clear authority on the practice, because, exactly like you said, you can drop a stone and find sound healer within the radius, and it's something that has only kind of come into my awareness in the last, say, 2 or 3 years, even though I know its practice has been shared for quite a number of years, if not a decade and more. And I just really enjoyed this conversation, to be able to have an opportunity to speak to someone that's been doing it for so long. But I wanted to ask you, I don't know if it's possible because you haven't got any equipment.
Oh. Could
you do a little sound healing for us? Could you do something? I don't know if it's a possibility without any equipment and off the cuff. It's a feature of the podcast. We do it from time to time.
Yes. And I would say that something that might be quite familiar to you would just be a simple practice of vocal toning.
Let's do it.
You know this?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm into it.
Okay.
Vocal toning.
Yeah.
Guide me away.
Shall we do it? Do we have a minute or two?
We got a minute or two.
Okay, fantastic. So, I would recommend both feet on the ground, flat on the ground.
Okay, I'm wearing some flip-flops. I'll take those off.
Okay. Yes, if they touch the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just finding a relaxed position with the hands. Anything is fine. You can lean back or sit upright, whatever feels comfortable to you.
Might fall asleep if it's too relaxing.
Okay.
Bust it up.
All right. And then if you feel comfortable, you can soften your eyes or close them. So downward gaze or eyes closed. And then first, just feeling the weight of your seat and noticing the natural rhythm of the breath. And so we'll begin by adding a little bit of sound to the breath. We'll inhale through the nose and then exhale an SH sound. So let all the air out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. And we'll do that again. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. Okay, now we'll start to open the sound a little bit more. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale a sigh. Again, releasing more sound. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. Back to the natural breath. Now start to listen in to a tone. And for the next exhale, you release one long extended sound. But when you're ready, inhale, exhale. And again, inhale. One more time. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Of course, gratitude for this body, this breath. When you're ready, you can slowly start to open your eyes, coming back into the space.
That was pleasant.
Okay.
I thought it was just what I needed. I wasn't sure when we started with this. I was like, this is interesting. But it just felt like by the sea. But then the I was like really in a different space. So just able to, even just now, I feel a bit more alive and a bit more awake. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
That was really powerful. Maybe I need to get myself to a sound healing.
Okay, sure. Anytime. Be my guest.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank you for your time, your presence today. I hope it was a conversation that you valued. I really valued it.
Oh, yes.
It's nice to get to know you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And you've got a really nice calming presence. I don't know whether you're always like this, but I just feel like myself and peaceful, open book kind of person helps me to continue to be an open book kind of person too.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And if you guys have enjoyed the episode, then drop it a comment, drop it a share, send it to a friend, feel the permission to listen to it again. Maybe you want to practice that sound healing vocal toning, you called it. Maybe you want to do it again, rewind, listen to it again, and rewind, and listen to it again, and go and check out Sara for all she's doing. I'm sure you'll be very inspired. Thank you all so much for joining us. I can't wait to see you on the next episode of A Soul's Sake. Thank you so much, and see you on the next one. Peace. If you enjoyed this podcast, you're sure to appreciate my conversation with Janavi Harrison, where we delve into the crossroads of spirituality, progress, and relationships whilst I was in India.
Creativity and being artful is something that everyone has and everyone can access. And I think it's more about, again, connecting to that deeper place within ourselves of intuition and playfulness, the sense of lightness, which can be quite hard in life. There's a lot of things to feel heavy about, but we are much more like that naturally as children.